The deep side of SpongeBob. Have you seen this snail? SpongeBob is a show that anyone who clicked on this video has to be at least familiar with. It is a show that is known by almost everyone, rivaling the popularity of characters such as Mario, Mickey Mouse, and Minecraft Steve. Today, I would like to break away from my normal content and make a video on something I believe to be very important. Especially to anyone who says that SpongeBob is nothing but brain rot, full of nonsensical happiness and bright colors. These statements are so far from the truth that I would like to start a series explaining the deeper side of SpongeBob, beginning today with the episode, Gary Come Home. Before getting into the details, I recommend you watch the episode first to be more familiar with it, as this episode, aside from the absolute banger that is Gary Come Home, contains one of the deepest subplots of any SpongeBoy Ahoy episode. Before we look at the deep side, I will describe the episode, hitting what I believe to be the most important points. Now, let's get straight into it. SpongeBob is carrying a bag of snail food home when he realizes he has a paper on his door, informing him that he has a package that will be delivered sometime soon. Soon after reading this paper, SpongeBob gets the package delivered, which is the official Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy paddleball set that comes with the challenge. SpongeBob takes his toy inside, leaving Gary's food outside, forgetting to feed his pet snail, and becomes enthralled by his paddleball toy as he attempts to beat the Dirty Bubbles challenge, which is an impossible challenge, involving hitting the ball 29,998,559,671,349 times in a row. This would take around 135,249 years to complete, if you were able to keep a constant speed of 211 hits every 30 seconds. This number comes from a recordsetter.com record. I also saw a Reddit post that came to the same answer I did, which again was of just about 135,000 years. But this doesn't account for errors or do-overs. This is all explained to point out that the Dirty Bubble Challenge is a literal waste of time. SpongeBob, while infatuated with completing his challenge, still forgets to feed Gary and gets upset with him when Gary goes to bother him, scolding Gary for not understanding the importance of the challenge. Gary makes a few more attempts to get SpongeBob's attention to feed him, but SpongeBob sees this as Gary being a quote-unquote bad snail, resulting in Gary writing a note and running away. A while later, Patrick wants to go see his friend, only to find a delirious SpongeBob lying red-eyed on the floor of his dirty, torn-up bedroom. Upon seeing Patrick, SpongeBob tells Patrick that he took the Dirty Bubble Challenge. Patrick, upon hearing this, begins to freak out and tells SpongeBob about his struggles with the Dirty Bubble Challenge, which was simply that he won and lost the trophy. This means that Patrick spent almost 135,000 years doing the challenge, unless Patrick is super fast. That's irrelevant, just wanted to point that out. SpongeBob, in an attempt to console his friend, invites him to a glass of milk, which has by now congealed into a gelatinous block. He then trips over Gary's bowl, which is empty, remembering that he needs to feed his pet snail. SpongeBob goes outside to grab the food he bought and says, "Gee, that's a lot of dust for a couple of hours." SpongeBob fills Gary's bowl, then calls for him, but Gary won't come. SpongeBob is informed he'd been out for about 10 days and in a panic runs to find Gary, searching every place possible, including the secret tunnel under his walkway, the toilet, and Squidward's crotch. Gary is nowhere to be found, and this causes SpongeBob to look in the last possible place, his mailbox. Inside the bulging mailbox is about 300 envelopes and a letter from Gary, informing SpongeBob that he went off to find a new owner that won't forget to feed him. We cut to Gary, who eventually came across a new town where he desperately tries to find something to eat. He comes across some old nachos that are buzzing with flies, but gets startled by some other mean-looking snails. In his desperate attempt to get away, Gary comes across an old lady, who's actually voiced by Amy Poehler, who then invites Gary home. Gary's happy to go home with his new owner, where, once at his new home, is showered with cookies, affection, and attention. We cut back to SpongeBob, who is still searching for his pet snail, all around Bikini Bottom. Back with Gary, he is cozy, eating popcorn and watching movies until he is told it's bedtime, which causes Gary to get up, and from his pack, his picture of SpongeBob falls out. Gary misses SpongeBob at first, until the picture begins to yell at him, reminding Gary of why he left in the first place. SpongeBob goes to his job with the Krusty Krab, where Krabs scolds him for being 15 minutes late. SpongeBob tells him that he's been out all night looking for Gary. Krabs ignores everything SpongeBob says and tells him he's got work to do. SpongeBob does as he's told until customers begin to complain. Krabs goes to talk with SpongeBob with the intent of getting him to work better. But what Krabs says instead encourages SpongeBob to do what matters most. Krabs intended for it to be understood as his job, but Gary is more important to SpongeBob than even his job. So SpongeBob runs off with the idea to do everything spongily possible to get his beloved snail back, specifically creating and posting flyers all about Bikini Bottom and neighboring towns. This leads to the first time SpongeBob and Gary could have been reunited, but Patrick is too daft to remember what he wants, who he's looking for, and who to tell, all at the same time. Basically, Patrick runs into Gary at the store while SpongeBob is outside. Patrick says hi to the snail, goes back outside to his friend, then moves on with his day, not remembering that he saw Gary until a bit later. After this, the best song in all of SpongeBob plays, Gary Come Home. And during the montage, we see SpongeBob come close to Gary at least 3 times, and Gary come close to SpongeBob's flyers about the same amount of times. This is important only to show that they are so close but still so far, as there is no contact made or indication for either that they're moving at all in the right direction, closer together. This is followed by Gary being given a stack of SpongeBob's flyers by his new owner, Grandma, where he realizes he isn't happy with Grandma, as he was with SpongeBob. Gary, ready to leave, heads through a door, only to see a bunch of empty, cracked snail shells fall out. Gary becomes terrified, and everything tells him to run. Literally, the paintings scream at him to run, and Grandma attempts to capture or kill him with some lethal cookie-throwing circles. Gary eventually escapes when he finds another snail, one of the ones from the alleyway earlier who Grandma takes into Gary's place. This allows Gary to eventually set back home. Around the same time, SpongeBob realizes he has no more tears left to cry. He goes on a walk where he decides it's time to give up the search and forget about Gary entirely. It is during this that SpongeBob hears Gary's meow and believes it to be his imagination. SpongeBob eventually realizes that it was actually Gary's meow he heard, and becomes happy to see his pet snail. SpongeBob makes promises that everything will be different from then on. That there was the play-by-play of the episode. Now, I would recommend pausing the video and seeing if you can gather what other way to look at the episode could possibly be, what this episode could be an analogy for. I believe this one to be one of the more apparent ones. I would like to see what other people get from this episode before hearing what I have to say, so please let me know in the comments or in an email or the Discord server, whichever is preferred by you. My email is in my channel's description. The Discord link is also in the channel's description, or there's a community post with it on there. Now, we will go back over the episode, but instead of the play-by-play of what is apparently going on, we will go over what is actually happening, the analogy. A parent is heading home with food for their hungry child. Upon getting home, there's a letter from someone who has something this parent had ordered or asked for. Soon after, the parent has something addictive delivered, I see it as heroin, which the man, the parent, is excited to try and puts it above their child's well-being. The child attempts to pull their parent from their soon-to-be addiction, but the parent pushes the child away in favor of what they believe to be more important. The child is left neglected, abused, and hungry, then runs away into an unsafe and uncaring world. The parent's friend goes to check on the parent, only to find the parent curled up on the floor, delirious and stuck in the coming down stage. The parent is strung out for what they believe to be just a few hours, only to find out it's been far longer than they previously thought, and their world is completely changed as their child is nowhere to be found. The parent puts all effort into finding their lost child, but despite their best efforts, there seems to be no way to undo the wrong that has been done, as the child had left a letter informing the parent that they left in an attempt to find somewhere they would be taken care of and not treated poorly. This causes the parent to come to a realization their actions can and will have dire consequences. The child is shown going through the desert and ending up in an entirely new town, dirty, hungry, and lost. Everywhere the child looks, through windows, at strangers, and even at nothing, there seems to be no way to alleviate the pain that they are feeling. The child finds some garbage, or should I say food, only to be bullied out of it by other street urchins. This causes the child to attempt to escape, only to be met by an old lady who seems to believe them to be their lost child. The child goes home with the old lady, and has every bit of sadness, hunger, and discomfort washed away. While all this is going on, the parent is still desperately trying to find their child, looking in every single possible place, but this time, throughout the entire town, not just their home. We see the child, happy as can be with their new caretaker, when a picture of their parent falls out of their pack, where they miss their parent at first, until they remember how bad things were at home. The feeling of missing their parent vanishes as quickly as it appeared. The parent shows up for their job in shambles, where the boss gives them advice that helps the parent realize that finding their child needs to be their top priority. The parent leaves their work and sets every bit of effort to finding their lost child. We see the child enjoying their new life, as every dream can and has come true. Attention, sweets, snacks, trips, fun, just everything a kid could ever want. This is where the song Gary Come Home plays, and this is where we see that they are both being taught a lesson. The parent shouldn't ever put anything above the people they love, and the child, or other person is learning that having everything you think you want isn't as great as it sounds. The old lady gives the child something that unintentionally shows the child how much their parent loves them, causing them to try and leave. This is where it gets dark. The child, in an attempt to leave, discovers the literal skeletons in the old lady's closet of the children in likely similar situations as they are. Everything screams to the child to leave, as they now understand why the old lady was being so kind, her malicious intentions. And when the old lady discovers that the secret is out, attempts to stop the child in any way possible. The child makes their escape and was only able to get away after hiding behind a garbage can, letting another child take their place. By now, the parent has gone on a walk and decides that there is no hope to be had and gives up on finding their child, believing it best to just try and move on. During the walk, the parent sees reminders of their child everywhere and wishes that things could be different. In an attempt to console themselves, the parent begins to apologize for everything they have done, and after the apology is out, they are reunited with their child. They then promise they would never do something so foolish and selfish again. That is the end of the episode. There is quite a bit to take in there. I will summarize it in a moral, like Aesop's fables. Don't let anything come between what is important and yourself. The damage can be ultimate and final, leaving you broken and hollow. Despite what I believe the episode to ultimately be about, I still believe there's another way to interpret it, which is as a relationship. Gary would likely be the significant other, and SpongeBob would be the breadwinner or provider of the relationship. I only point this out to say that SpongeBob can be viewed in a few ways. When some people ask, what happened to modern SpongeBob? Why isn't the show as good as it used to be? The reason is that these subplots have been damn near eradicated, leaving only the familiarity of SpongeBob and his friends, and no actual lessons. Early SpongeBob was full of these, and that's why if this video performs decent enough, I will make more of these. With all that said, I have done my best to make the point that SpongeBob is as deep as you let it be. You can say, it's just a cartoon, TNX, it's not that deep, but I would argue that it's due to how deep it is that SpongeBob is still relevant to this day, nearly 25 years later. Thank you for watching my video, and please like and subscribe. If you enjoyed the video, please let me know, so I'll be encouraged to make more. I will see you later, and look forward to more new content from me, or go watch my old videos. I put a lot of time into those too. Thank you. Bye.